Okay, we'll start there with Joseph. How we doing, our folks at home? Nice to see everybody. And here comes Leah. The proportions are shifting. We have 3 in person today. Rejoice and be pleased. Bring me the finest bagels in all the land. Okay. I gotta tell you, big day today, I think. I think we're getting through Genesis.
Oh, okay. Yes.
And I think we might be starting Exodus this week. We'll see. But we're getting close. We are getting pretty close to the end. Of,
3 pages? I think we can do it.
We're going to shoot for it because Passover is a coming. So we know we might as well begin the Passover tale today. Let's begin with our blessing for the study of Torah. Baruch
atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik
Torah. Harmonious as always. Okay, very nicely done. Okay, so let's begin. Linda White, do you want to start us off?
Sure. And Jacob called his sons and said, "Come together, that I may tell you what is to befall you in days to come."
Is that what you, hold on, Linda. Is that what you have?
What?
Hold on, I just want to make sure we're all on the same part here. Is it on the screen? What are people seeing on the screen?
All I see is Temple B'nai Israel, black screen.
I'm not seeing any words.
Temple B'nai Israel has started screen sharing.
Indeed, I have a little while ago.
I see the words, but it's really small lettering. And
Okay, that is odd to me.
Let's see if there's any. No words.
Okay. Let me stop the share and I'll start it again and see if we can't remedy that, because that was not what I had on my screen. So there might have been a delay.
That's a better sign.
I blame the internet. The internet giveth and taketh away.
Hail to the internet.
Okay.
Oh, I'm getting words.
There we go.
Oh, got it.
Okay, just give me 1 second. I can make it a little bit bigger. Okay. This is why I get paid the big bucks, Tyler. Okay. Okay, here we go.
There.
Okay, so we did that already last week. So we're skipping down. Hopefully it's skipping down for y'all. Okay, we see Joseph.
Okay. Joseph is a wild ass by a spring, wild colts on a hillside. Archers bitterly assailed him. They shot at him and harried him. Yet his bow stayed taut, and his arms were made firm by the hands of the mighty one of Jacob. There the shepherd, the rock of Israel, the God of your father's house, who helped you, and Shaddai, who blesses you with blessings of heaven above, blessings of the deep that couches below, blessings of the breast and womb. The blessings of your father surpass the blessings of my ancestors to the utmost bounds of the eternal hills. May they rest on the head of Joseph, on the brow of the elect of his brothers.
Not a bad blessing. It sounds pretty good. Sounds like he's strong and virile, and a lot of good things happening for him. That he's a little bit rowdy, that wild ass comment, it's hard to tame, right? but that was seen as a positive statement. If you call someone that today, it's probably less good. But, in the biblical context, it's a compliment. And though people tried to attack him, he survived. Not only survived, he thrived with God's help. And then some more blessings here that Joseph and his descendants are getting blessings from heaven, the blessings from earth, the blessings everywhere, left and right. Blessings for everyone. You get a blessing, you get a blessing, everyone gets a blessing. And it's very nice for Joseph. And then after that huge soliloquy, Benjamin gets a sentence here. So, Linda, you want to finish off the blessings here?
Benjamin is a ravenous wolf. In the morning, he consumes the foe, and in the evening, he divides the spoil.
That's right.
And you want me to do the rest?
No, it's good, He's lost and he's found, and he's hungry like the wolf. Anyone get that one? Rick got that one. That's about it. Yeah. That's okay. Okay, very good. Sandy, you want to pick up here? All these were?
Oh, I'm not muted. All these were the tribes of Israel, 12 in number. And this is what their father said to them as he bade them farewell, addressing to each a parting word appropriate to him. Then he instructed them, saying to them, I am about to be gathered to my kin. Bury me with my ancestors in the cave which is in the field of Ephron the Hittite, the cave which is in the field of Machpelah, facing Mamre in the land of Canaan, the field that Abraham bought from Ephron the Hittite for a burial site. There Abraham and his wife Sarah were buried. There Isaac and his wife Rebekah were buried. And there I buried Leah, the field and the cave in it, bought from the Hittites.
So yes, excellent. Remember, we need to have biblical consistency, at least once in a while. Not always, to be frank, but in this case, we have biblical consistency. That we go back to the story of Abraham when Sarah dies, and Abraham bargains and sort of deals with Ephron the Hittite and buys the field in the cave of Machpelah as their burial ground. And so Abraham buries Sarah there, but now it's become sort of like the Jewish burial plot. There's a burial plot that's sort of there. When an Israelite and his family at least dies, that's where they go. And so still happens today, by the way, as we know. So, people buy like family funeral plots. So they can be buried in the same place. And here it's the recall to earlier in this part of the story, where Jacob, does not want to be buried in Egypt, and God has told them like that he's not his bones aren't going to rest there, that eventually he will be taken up from out of Egypt and brought back and buried in this land of Canaan, in the field, in the cave of Machpelah. And so, spoiler alert, at the end of, the Exodus story, they're carrying, if you saw the movie, it's there too, but they sort of carry the bones of Jacob. I'll say, whenever I see the name Pharaoh in the Torah, I always picture Yul Brynner every single time. Yul Brynner is my Pharaoh. So it shall be written, so it shall be done. He is my Pharaoh. So they carry him out and they bring him back, Jacob, that is, back to Machpelah. That's where he belongs. The stay in Egypt was supposed to be, a transitional moment. It's a few hundred years, but it's transitional. In the grand scheme of human history, what's a few hundred years here or there? And so that's the deal here. That's keeping his word. And Jacob, Sandy, give me one more over here.
When Jacob finished his instructions to his sons, he drew his feet into the bed, and breathing his last, he was gathered to his kin. Yeah,
i.e. he died. He was gathered to his kin. Even then we have euphemisms for death. And that's it. I mean, Jacob has a long run. Some of it's, broken up with the other stories about his kids. but it's been a while. We've been on Jacob and his story for a long time, even though it's been interspersed with the Joseph narrative. And so he dies here, and it sort of concludes that chapter. And now we're really in Egypt. Jacob was the one still in Canaan, with the brother. With the sons. And now sort of that generation has passed, and now we're on to Joseph's generation and his family, his kids. We're going to get a little bit of it, and then we're going to fast forward a few hundred years to Moses.
Is there any consensus about what time before the Common Era this is occurring?
Oh, goodness. I want to say 1600 BCE, in that era. Again, give or take 100 years. Yeah. 1000 BCE is the agreed upon period for David. And so David and Solomon go to about 972, a little bit more, I think, BCE. And so then you have to factor in, so working backwards, you have the time of the judges, you have the time of, before then, the wandering in the wilderness, so the Joshua narrative. And I think it's 400 years in Egypt,
Right.
so working backwards, around like 16, and I think anywhere between like 18 and 1600 would be a good guess for when these are supposed to have happened.
Talking about 3,500 years ago.
A long time ago, a long time ago indeed. And so and that's it for Jacob. His sort of long journey, his narrative sort of ends. And really, we know that even though we've had obviously a lot of Joseph's talk too, after Jacob dies, we get one more chapter. That's it. Chapter 50 is the end of Genesis. And so we're going to wrap up Joseph here too, in this chapter. And so Jacob passes on, and then Joseph, though time does pass, obviously, here. Then we get into the Joseph narrative as well. So they're very closely tied together, maybe a symbol of father and son being closely tied together in terms of the narrative. So just an indication. Gary, you want to pick up here? Joseph flung.
Okay. Joseph flung himself upon his father's face and wept over him and kissed him. Then Joseph ordered the physicians in his service to embalm his father, and the physicians embalmed Israel. It required 40 days, for such is the full period of embalming. Wow. The Egyptians bewailed him 70 days, and when the wailing period was over, Joseph spoke to Pharaoh's court, saying, "Do me this favor, and lay this appeal before Pharaoh. My father made me swear, saying, I am about to die. Be sure to bury me in the grave which I made ready for myself in the land of Canaan. Now therefore let me go up and bury my father, then I shall return."
Okay. And
so they did him the way the Egyptians did, sounds like.
Yeah. I mean, again, culture is culture, your assimilation is assimilation. And so walk like an Egyptian, embalm like an Egyptian, it's there.
Yeah.
And 70 days is a lot of time to bewail. Yeah, that's a lot of bewailing for the Egyptians. And then the wailing period was over. I'm not sure who marks the end of the wailing period, but I guess it's, you had 40 days of embalming and then the wailing period. So that's 110 days before the funeral. Okay. And so here we go. Oh, yes, I skipped ahead. It's not Jacob's bones, it's Joseph's bones. Silly Rabbi. So they bury Jacob now. They're going to bury Joseph back when he dies. They're going to bring him back as well. Okay, so let's keep going. Gary, give me one more. And Pharaoh said.
Okay. And Pharaoh said, "Go up and bury your father, as he made you promise on oath." So Joseph went up to bury his father, and with him went all the officials of Pharaoh, the senior members of his court, and all of Egypt's dignitaries, together with all of Joseph's household, his brothers and his father's household. Only their children, their flocks, and their herds were left in the region of Goshen. Chariots, too, and horsemen went up with him. It was a very large troop. When they came to Goran-ha-Atad, which is beyond the Jordan, they held there a very great and solemn lamentation, and he observed a mourning period of 7 days for his father.
Wait,
Yeah, so-
didn't they have to leave the Secretary of Agriculture or something, you know?
Where?
Oh, leave somebody behind who was in charge.
Oh yeah, have to leave someone. Yeah, I think Pharaoh was probably holding it down,
Okay, sorry.
yeah.
Is this where we get the 7 days for Shiva?
I was gonna ask that too, Gear.
Yeah, sure, why not? Sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this gives it some kind of a basis.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, I think we have a basis here of 7 days for Shiva. I'm not sure if this is like, I think this is the first time we get 7 days. Abraham bewails for a while. And I don't remember who else bewails, but there is bewailing. So 7 days for Shiva. It makes sense to me. We have it here. I just don't remember a connection between Shiva and Joseph and Jacob sort of mourning period, but it makes clear sense to me. It's right here, 7 days. Sounds good. But it's a schlep. They leave Goshen, and they get to Goran Ha'atad. Anyone ever been there? There's like a Target there right now, I think, and no, I have no idea what's there. It's it's just a valley somewhere, and right beyond the Jordan. For all I know, there could be a Target there at this point in time, beyond the Jordan.
Why do they go beyond the Jordan? That's like,
Because they're in Egypt and they got to go
On the other side.
Someone get me a map.
Jordan is
On the other side.
Yeah, on the east side.
They didn't have GPS then either, Rick. Come on. You're walking a while. The Jordan River, you have to pass the Jordan to get into the territories, right? To the, no?
Not if you're coming from the Egypt side,
The
it's on the
Egypt-
west.
I need a map, somebody, once again.
They
We don't
took
have
a
map
different
of Israel.
road.
Yeah.
They
just
took
taking-
I-95.
I was gonna say they took 19 to get to, someone get me a map. I'm sure it works out. I'm sure they figured it out. But my goodness, it's a walk. And we need to refurbish the home with a map of Israel and a map of the Middle East.
Yeah, there's a map of Israel.
Yeah,
Well, not a map,
No,
but it's
yeah.
just a picture of it.
yeah.
And the Jordan's over here.
The Jordan's
Yeah, but
over
it's
there.
gonna change course like the Mississippi,
It changes course at the Mississippi.
like the Mississippi.
Everything ends up on the west coast, though.
The sun sets in the east. Oh my goodness. Well, we'll play biblical geography a little bit later. My goodness. That could be an interesting tangent in and of itself. Karen, you want to pick up here when the Canaanite inhabitants?
Okay, and when the Canaanite inhabitants of the land saw, I can't quite see what that is, something at Goran Ha'atad, they said, this is a solemn mourning on the part of the Egyptians. That is why it was named Abel Mizraim, which is beyond the Jordan. We're still
Beyond the Jordan, once again.
Thus his sons, now wait, who's his?
Joseph's, Jacob's sons.
Jacob's, okay. Thus his sons did for him as he had instructed them. His, excuse me, his sons carried him to the land of Canaan and buried him in the field of Machpelah and the field near Mamre, which Abraham had bought for 2 Zuzim, okay? For a burial place of Ephron and the Hittite. I'm sorry. Got the wrong
In case
burial.
you had forgotten from a paragraph ago that
Yeah,
Abraham
I'm
had
sorry.
bought from Ephron the Hittite.
Yeah,
Well,
okay.
make sure you remember his name and that he bought the field, because we need to have proof. Always keep your receipts. Never
Right.
delete email. Oh, archive it. You never know when you'll need it.
Yeah, true.
Oh my goodness. Give me one more after burying.
After burying his father, Joseph returned to Egypt, he and his brothers and all who had gone up with him to bury his father. When Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, what if Joseph still bears a grudge against us and pays us back for all the wrong that we did him? Good.
That's right. now dad's gone. It could be time for a little revenge.
Yeah.
Revenge is a dish best served cold. Sort of like hummus, but I don't know. I like warm hummus too. I don't know. Oh no, in Israel you get it warm. That's the key. Yeah, nice warm bowl of hummus. Egg salad is a dish best served cold because you don't want warm egg salad. Then it's sitting out so long you get sick. Gefilte fish.
Better warm.
I wouldn't want it anyway, to be honest. I have heard that. Does anyone else heat their gefilte fish?
I do.
I've
Oh,
made it
okay.
when it's heated.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
heat it.
No, that's
Instead
terrible.
of, give it a little nuke. Put a little saute pan in it. A little flavor.
Buried in.
A lot of horseradish on it and everything.
That's not.
Get a nice little char on it.
Vehicle for a heat portion.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so his brothers are a little bit nervous for rightful reason. Now that dad is gone, I think I've used the reference. No one harms Fredo while dad is still alive. And so now dad has passed on, and they're a little worried, and one might not begrudge them their nervousness. If you throw your brother into a pit and sell him to slavery, he might just want to be coming at you later. And so they're a little nervous. So they get a little message to their brother. Leah, you want to give that a read? So they sent.
Yes, and thank you. No hard words. So they sent this message to Joseph. Before his death, your father left this instruction. So shall you say to Joseph, forgive. I urge you, the offense and guilt of your brothers who treated you so harshly. Therefore, please forgive the offense of the servants of the God of your father's house. And Joseph was in tears as they spoke to him.
A nice family moment. Joseph, don't you forget what? Yes, they made it up. It's a load of malarkey. Didn't say it at all.
Yeah, they're still full of it.
Yeah.
Yes,
Exactly.
yes, they are. But it's an easy lie, and it's one that Joseph is very willing to accept. Because remember, just a couple moments ago, we were reading, Jacob's last will and testament there, went on for a while. Let me tell you all when I think of you. And let me tell you a little bit about this and a little bit about that. And then he dies, so this was a little bit extra. Joseph, when you stepped out of the room to use the facilities, Jacob gave us this instruction. You just missed it. Whatever it is. You were gone. You were having a burger or something when this happened. And it's a ploy, right? Let's be fair. Like it's definitely not true. It's not there. But they're lying to sort of, cover themselves, to be sure, but to sort of, make sure everything is copacetic. So can we really blame them too much for this lie? Maybe not. The rabbis let them off the hook for the most part, in commentary and midrashim, because they're like, what, like it's a lie, but it was for a good cause. It's for familial harmony and whatever it might be. And Joseph might have known. So it's how you want to think about Joseph's tears here. I mean, Joseph's obviously going to speak a little more in a moment. But in another sense, you could say maybe Joseph was crying because his brothers are so full of it still, and he knows it. He knows that his dad didn't say anything about this, so he's upset that he still has lying, sleazy brothers. I don't know. What do we think? Are we happy with this? Unhappy with this?
Joseph seems to have been trying for a long time.
Yeah.
I think it's nice.
Joseph's been making an effort, and Joseph has not given any indication that he bears any ill will. The Midrash says, the interpretation, right, says that Joseph and his brothers were all schlepping to the burial site, and on the way back, they passed the hole. They passed the pit that they threw him into, and Joseph sort of takes a moment and is sort of standing by the pit and sort of looking at it contemplatively. And the rabbi say in his mind, he was thinking how far I've come, right? From this pit to the upper echelon of Egyptian society. And his brothers see him staring at that pit going, oh, pit, this is not great. This is not, like he's looking at this thing far too long. And maybe he's thinking some unhappy thoughts, some giving the brothers the side eye. And so there was a moment here, perhaps, where the brothers were nervous because they thought maybe Joseph is having some thoughts run through his head about payback. And so they wanted to make sure to entreat him and what better way than to use dead dad? No one's going to argue with dead dad. He's gone. And carries a lot of weight, right? Can't go back and change it. Oh, this is what dad said. Sure. Okay. And Joseph, accepts it, as we're going to see in a moment. Like I think Joseph pretty clearly accepts it, on their word here. There's a lot of, drama here still because it's the Bible, so you gotta have a little drama. Leah, want to give me one more? His brothers went to him.
I think that they should have been singing The Way We Were. His brothers went to him themselves, flung themselves before him and said, "We are prepared to be your slaves." But Joseph said to them, "Have no fear. Am I a substitute for God? Besides, although you have intended me harm, God intended it for good, so as to bring about the present result, the survival of many people. And so fear not, I will sustain you in your dependence." Then he reassured them, speaking kindly to them.
So Joseph's real view hasn't really changed from the first time they went through this, in the palace, in Joseph's home, that when they had the whole reveal, they said, look, this isn't your plan, it was God's plan, and who am I to judge? Only God can judge. We'll see. But
he's a little too good to be real.
Yeah, well, that's why he's Joseph. He's a good dude. He's a sweet dude, exactly. And so he's, and again, it's a largesse to be sure. All intended me harm, God intended it for good. He's being the bigger person and sort of sees the big picture and is able to forgive. I'm not sure how many people would be willing to be as forgiving as good old Joseph here. And yeah. Look at a lot of head shakes here. Nah, I'd kill these dudes.
That's what I do.
Exactly. I have some vengeful Bible studiers over here.
Trying to convince the government on the death warrant.
Yeah. And so Joseph is full of love, a heart full of love. And so reassures them, speaks kindly to them, and sort of buries the hatchet, but not in their heads, as we say. So it is kind and it is love. And then we'll get to the end here. Debbie, you want to pick up? So Joseph, you got to unmute.
Okay.
There you go.
I'm always mixed up which one to do.
You got it.
So Joseph and his father's household remained in Egypt. Joseph lived 110 years. Joseph lived to see children of the third generation of Ephraim. The children of Mahir, son of Manasseh, were likewise born upon Joseph's knees. At length, Joseph said to his brothers, "I am about to die. God will surely take notice of you and bring you up from this land to the land promised on oath to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob." So Joseph made the sons of Israel swear, saying, "When God has taken notice of you, you shall carry up my bones from here." Joseph died at the age of 110 years, and he was embalmed and placed in a coffin in Egypt.
This really end with a bang, Genesis, right? That's like the last sentence.
It's kind of weird that his brothers are outliving him.
Yeah.
Wasn't he the youngest?
Brothers.
He was the almost the youngest.
Oh, yeah,
Benjamin.
that's right. That's right.
I just like the phrase "at length." Joseph said to his brothers, these guys don't talk for a short period of time. They always have things to say. But he lives a long life. He gets to the third generation, so to see his children's children. Because Manasseh is his son, then Machir is the grandchild, and the children of Machir be the great grandkids. So he gets to the great grandkids, and sort of wraps it up and just reminds them, hey, not that it helps the brothers, right? Because the brothers are going to be dead too. So it's just more like he has to make sure, like you have to transmit this information to get to the next generation for a couple hundred years to make sure they remember. And that's why Joseph made all of the sons of Israel swear, right? So it's got to pass that information down. And then he's in Egypt. Not that I wonder if there's a holy space in Egypt that is purportedly where Joseph's body was, and it was eventually transported. But I wonder if there's like, this used to be where Joseph was buried.
Well, like a holy place where Jews would find.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, the Muslims have it too. I mean, same sort of. I doubt it, I guess.
No.
But Joseph was there. Here used to reign. Joseph, and so okay, we've done it. We have completed Genesis. One book down, 38 more to go. So we're off to a good start. Okay, and look, I even marked it for us. Exodus chapter 1. So Genesis, of course, we know is all about the stories of our patriarchs and even the people who predated them, Noah, Adam and Eve, et cetera, Cain and Abel. And so like that sort of sends us off, and we know where we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be in the land of Canaan, which is going to become Israel. And Exodus sort of begins with, now we're in Egypt. And so we have 4 books to get back to where we started. We started in Canaan, and we have to get back there. And we actually don't get back there until Joshua. Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so it's like, so we started off knowing where we're supposed to be, and we're not there anymore. And which is, I think, an interesting metaphor, just generally speaking, for people, is that sometimes we're just not where we're meant to be. And it's a struggle, physically, emotionally, spiritually, to get back to where we need to be, our right mindset. And certainly here from a peoplehood standpoint, it's about, we went through creation. Now we have to go through the creation of a people, revelation and redemption. So we got a long way to go. But now we get to sort of get our Passover story going. Exodus is probably the book, at least the first half, that people are most familiar with because of Passover. That we sort of have the Seder story. And while the Seder story does have some moments in Genesis, we talk about the story, how we got to Egypt. The Exodus story is really where it kicks off. The Exodus, the book of Exodus in Hebrew is called Shemot, which just means names. And so the books of the Torah in Hebrew are just taken after the first words of the actual book. And so Genesis, is Bereshit. And so Bereshit is the name in Hebrew. And here, these are the names, Eleh Shemot. Shemot, names, has much less of a ring to it than Exodus. Exodus gives you sort of a better sense of what the book is about. Whereas names, just because we're going to remind ourselves who we are. Or who we were at that point, and then who we're going to be through the story. So with all that preamble said, Debbie, you want to give me one more here? These are the names.
These are the names of the sons of Israel who came to Egypt with Jacob, each coming with his household. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan and Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. The total number of persons that were of Jacob's issue came to 70, Joseph being already in Egypt. Joseph died, and all his brothers and all that generation. But the Israelites were fertile and prolific. They multiplied and increased very greatly, so that the land was filled with them.
Be fruitful
And
and
multiply.
Multiply.
Okay, and they were doing that a lot, in Egypt, because through the generations, we started off with these small group of people, 70 people, and now we're going to have lots more as the years progress. Very greatly, the land was filled with them. Sounds a little ominous. One can't blame Pharaoh, perhaps. It sounds a little ominous. Barbara, you want to pick up here? A new king arose.
A new king arose over Egypt who did not know Joseph. And he said to his people, "Look, the Israelite people are much too numerous for us. Let us deal shrewdly with them so that they may not increase. Otherwise, in the event of war, they may join our enemies in fighting against us and rise up from the ground." So they set taskmasters over them to oppress them with forced labor. And they built garrison cities for Pharaoh, Pithom and Ramses.
Okay, so here we go. It starts early, right? We sort of detach ourselves from the Genesis narrative. We have this new king here who doesn't know Joseph. Not that he wasn't in his phone book, isn't in his address book. It's years later. Joseph's dead and buried. And he doesn't remember all the great things that Joseph did for Egypt and his descendants. And so he said, you know what? Certain people, this always happens to us, certain people just sort of around, we don't like them. They're too numerous. Let's be mean to them. And here there's a defensive reason, the idea that should another country try to overthrow the Egyptians, the Israelites being not trusted because they're foreigners, the idea would be maybe they'll join up with whatever army de jour is trying to invade us. And there's a lot of them, and so that's going to might tip the scales, an extra, couple 100,000 soldiers, it could be a problem. And so they said, you know what, let's knock this out right now. Let's press them a little time for slavery and building some cities, putting them to work. Pithom and Ramses are two cities they are building.
It happened the second time, though. Hitler kind of did the same thing.
Yeah, I'm going to say more than once.
Yeah.
We sort of had this deal happen to us for a number of reasons throughout history. Well, the reasons are actually usually similar, but the end result is usually similar too. But it doesn't work out as Pharaoh plans. Barbara, give me a little more, but the more
they were oppressed, the more they increased and spread out, so that the Egyptians came to dread the Israelites. The Egyptians ruthlessly imposed upon the Israelites the various labors that they made them perform. Ruthlessly, they made life bitter for them with harsh labor at mortar and bricks and with all sorts of tasks in the field. The king of Egypt spoke to the Hebrew midwives, one of whom was named Shiphrah and the other Puah, saying, "When you deliver the Hebrew women, look at the birth stool. If it is a boy, kill him. If it is a girl, let her live."
Lovely. Okay, so we have here our maror, our horseradish, right? Ruthlessly made our lives bitter, and so that's the maror here with mortar and bricks, etc., etc. A lot of work. And so the charoset for the mortar and the bricks. And then, this isn't working so well, right? These darn Israelites and their penchant for survival and perseverance. It doesn't work so well. And so Pharaoh comes up with a new plan here and goes to these Hebrew midwives. Hard to get good help. Shiphrah and Puah, because you would think he would send other people to do this and not Hebrew midwives. But Shiphrah and Puah are sort of taken into Pharaoh's service and says, hey, when you're there helping these Hebrew women give birth, check it out. If it's a boy, get rid of him. And if it's a girl, it's fine, because they're not so worried about the girls in the army.
It was like in China at one time when girls weren't valuable in China as boys were. So it's the reverse kind of.
Yeah, it's a different scenario, but yeah, it's still the idea of just like the gender of the baby determining its fate, and so so Shifra and Pua get this unpleasant task that they are meant to do this, of course, and not for the first time. Oh, sorry. For the first time in Exodus, but not for the last time, we have some unlikely female heroes. So it's not all about Moses. We have some people also who do a lot of good work here. And Shifra and Pua, one can say if it wasn't for them, they're probably even more important than anyone else because they don't obey this command. They let the boys live. Okay.
Rabbi, are those two women supposed to represent all the midwives? Because they'd be really busy if the population, had increased that significantly, but there were only two of them to deliver.
The market's the market, and sometimes it's hard to find, good employment, and so yeah, no, they're not the representative to be sure. I sort of glossed over it a little bit. It's interesting in terms of the Hebrew language here, how it can be translated. So the king of Egypt spoke to the Hebrew midwives. So the question comes in, are they Hebrew midwives, meaning that they themselves are Israeli, or they are Israelites, I should say, or are they the midwives who administer to the Hebrews? And it's seen more likely to be the second one, according to some commentaries, but again, it depends on who you read, because it would be stupid to have it be a Hebrew midwives, trying to tell the Hebrew midwives to kill Hebrew babies, like you'd want it to be an Egyptian. That would make a little bit more sense, but it is unclear sort of who they actually are, sort of stock characters here of the female sort of heroines who, much like Esther, and others, sort of like disobey the command and wind up, saving lives. But yeah, I would think they were pretty busy. They got to run around a lot and go
throughout Egypt.
Yeah, like Goshen. Goshen's a small, but still, you got to get on your horse a lot. I guess.
Hop on a train
to do this. How many babies are born, in daycare every day? I don't know. It's a lot of kids.
Rabbi, don't you think it'd be strange that Pharaoh would deign to speak to a midwife directly? I mean, this is the big shot, and these are the little people.
Yeah, he might have had, someone. He might have delegated out. You're right. Who knows? Here we have Pharaoh. Sort of says Pharaoh spoke to him. But you're right. Maybe he delegated.
I don't know. It just seems odd.
But yeah, no, yeah, you wouldn't think that the king of Egypt would have time to messing around with Shifra and Pua. But then again, it's an important task. It's part of it's part of the agenda, part of the policy, right? And so you got to find your people. And Shifra and Pua were not his people, as it turned out. Okay, Rick, the midwives fearing God.
The midwives fearing God did not do as the king of Egypt had told them. They let the boys live. So the king of Egypt summoned the midwives and said to them, "Why have you done this thing, letting the boys live?" The midwives said to Pharaoh, "Because the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women. They are vigorous. Before the midwife can come to them, they have given birth." And God dealt well with the midwives. And the people multiplied and increased greatly. And because the midwives feared God, he established households for them. Then Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, "Every boy that is born you shall throw into the Nile, but let every girl live."
As I said, hard to find good help, right? So like Shifra and Pua don't get the job done for him. So now he has to delegate to everybody, basically. He has to empower. He has to create his own force here to monitor Hebrew births.
Isn't that a little bit like what they've done in Texas, where they've encouraged people to sue if someone wants to get an abortion or in any way help somebody get an abortion?
Opposite to me, though.
Well, I'll put it this way. I think one can draw a parallel. You don't think so, Rick?
That's just exact up. They want in here. They're trying to stop them from killing people.
Well, I think more it's the idea of like about creating its own force, its own unit to do these things.
It says, throw the Jews in the Nile department.
Yeah, throw the Jews in the Nile department. Got to monitor every birth to see if it's kosher or not. Every Israelite birth. We need our own monitors. We don't trust what's happening. The midwives feared God, so they don't do it, and then Pharaoh goes, "What's your problem?" It's like, I gave you an order. And they go, "Hey, you know what? They give birth like this. Giving birth is so easy, for these Hebrew women, these Israelite women. They just sort of do it and on to the next thing, and then the midwife doesn't need to be there. Do it all themselves." Powerful, strong Israelite women, Hebrew women. Okay, and so God rewards, and this paragraph over here would tend to coincide with that idea that maybe these were actually Egyptians, because it doesn't really say they're Israelites, and God deals nicely with them, and they multiply and get the households, etc., etc. So, I don't know. I think to me, I think it's cooler, obviously, if these were Egyptian women defying an Egyptian order to help the Hebrew people. I think that shows a greater sort of sense of community and a sense of justice and a sense of greater, humanity, right? Where the Egyptians are looking after the needs of others in this example. I think it's nicer. Doesn't work either. Pharaoh's not really doing well with these attempts here. So now we're doing the river plan. Melissa, you want to pick up here?
A certain man?
Yeah, certain.
A certain man of the house of Levi went and married a Levite woman. The woman conceived and bore a son, and when she saw how beautiful he was, she hid him for 3 months. When she could hide him no longer, she got a wicker basket for him and caulked it with bitumen and pitch. She put the child into it and placed it among the reeds by the bank of the Nile, and his sister stationed herself at a distance to learn what would befall him.
Very quick, right? So we sort of go from the edict to, by the way, this is how we subvert the edict. This is how we sort of change. We don't get names here. We just get the tribe of Levi. The woman conceived and bore a son and saw how beautiful, etc., etc. Hid him for a little while. Hard to hide a baby. So put him in the basket and sent him down the river. Bitumen and pitch. Does anyone remember where we used bitumen before for?
Is it only a sacrifice or something?
No. Same purpose though. I mean, as the basket, in a way. What's a much bigger basket?
The ark.
The ark.
Yeah, we need to have things waterproof. Yeah, bitumen. Yeah, and the Tower of Babel as well. To sort of build it up and to make sure that God couldn't knock it down with water. Didn't work so well, but for the Tower of Babel folks.
Smart.
But again, a little consistency. You got to have the same materials here. A little bit of caulk to get this thing done. Sort of like a home improvement special. But this is how you make a basket to be waterproof, And like Bob Vila is there. He did houses though, right? Someone else. I don't know the home improvement people on TV. The celebrity chefs maybe, but not the home improvement people. So we have this and the sister, again, unnamed so far, sort of like wants to see. She wants to see what's going to happen. She's got buy-in. She wants to see how this resolves itself. So they float him down, and who's going to find him? Melissa, give me one more. The daughter.
The daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe in the Nile, while her maidens walked along the Nile. She spied the basket among the reeds and sent her slave girl to fetch it. When she opened it, she saw that it was a child, a boy, crying. She took pity on it and said, "This must be a Hebrew child." Then his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and get you a Hebrew nurse to suckle the child for you?" And Pharaoh's daughter answered, "Yes." So the girl went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this child and nurse it for me, and I will pay your wages." So the woman took the child and nursed it. When the child grew up, she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, who made him her son. She named him Moses, explaining, "I drew him out of the water."
So you see a little idea here. And so they have the baby, and Miriam, again unnamed, but the sister sort of sees this and says, "Hey, I have an idea. I know a Hebrew woman who can help out a little bit with the feeding of the child." And so Moses gets to spend a little more time with his mother before officially going into Pharaoh's palace with Pharaoh's daughter, and again made him her son. And again gives him the Egyptian sort of that name Moses. I drew him out of the water. So we had Shiphrah and Puah, heroic. We had Pharaoh's daughter. We have Miriam. We had a lot of female heroines here. Yes, Aliyah.
So how would they not know that he was Hebrew? Because wouldn't he have been circumcised?
Well, they say that she thinks it's a Hebrew, then it must be a Hebrew child, and so I think that she knows, and that he's Hebrew. I think it's just a question of, does it become common knowledge for everybody? I don't know how many people are checking his drawers, afterwards, right? As he's getting older, maybe his first girlfriend, it could be a problem, but I don't know about his dating life back then. But you're right. I mean, like, it does jump, right? I mean, the story jumps, as we're going to see in a second, right? We have like 1-year-old Moses, not even, right? 3-month-old Moses. And then once we get out of here, Moses is a man already, right? And so we miss a lot of those years in between what happened when he was drawn out of the water and breastfed, sort of weaned and given to Pharaoh's daughter. We got nothing for like 20 years. So, Prince of Egypt, and sort of other movies notwithstanding, we don't have any knowledge of what young Moses's life was like living in Pharaoh's palace. Like, we don't know. That's why we have all this interpretation in Midrash and movies, but the Bible gives us nothing, about those years in between baby and, soon to be prophet and hero. By the way, similar to the New Testament and Jesus, there's some gaps, in Jesus's life as well. You sort of have the birth, and then he's like 30. It's like, there's, a lot of time goes in between one from the other.
So is it only in the movie 10 Commandments that he doesn't know that he's Hebrew?
Yeah, I mean, again, we don't know. We don't have it in the Torah, sort of like when he has his own revelation moment. I was swaddled in a Levite garment, we don't have that
for the first 20 years of my life.
Yeah, we don't have that moment in the Bible where he actually even understands his Hebrewness, at least up to this point. I think he gets like, I'm trying to think, is there a moment in the Torah? I guess we'll find out as we keep reading, where he's sort of, where there's a reveal, of it, in some way.
God tells him his brother Aaron is going to translate for him.
Yeah, exactly.
What brother Aaron?
What brother Aaron? What's going on here?
Sounds like a Jewish name.
Yeah. And so maybe burning bush time, maybe something else, maybe an ancestry.com kind of thing. I don't know if he has a sense of his own Hebrewness.
Maybe Edward G. Robinson tells him.
Yes. Edward G. Robinson can tell him.
Who's your Pharaoh now?
Charlton Heston. Yeah, okay.
Oh my God.
Hate that.
That's a good cast, one has to say.
Ugh.
One
That
has
must
to.
give me nightmares.
Oh my God. I drew him out of the water. Okay. I had a professor of mine at HUC who was a consultant on the 10 Commandments, because there was a part towards the end of the movie where God, is shooting the lightning out of the finger, and, the 10 Commandments are being written. They wanted to make sure they got the Hebrew right. So that was his job, to make sure they weren't writing complete mishigas. It's like, you ever see someone with like a Hebrew tattoo, and you see it and you go, that's not right. Like, whoever did this to you did not know Hebrew. You wanted peace and they wrote soup, it's like, so I hope you really like soup. It doesn't, don't get Hebrew tattoos unless you're in Israel or have a Jewish person doing them, because I've had to do that for other things, because that did happen to me once. Somebody came to me because they saw the yarmulke and they said, "Oh, you're probably Jewish. Can you help me out?" And they wanted me to make sure that I wrote out in Hebrew the tattoo that they wanted. So when they took it to the artist, they could get it correct, and so I had some fun that day. But that's not, I'm just kidding. I did the right thing. But it's putting a lot of faith. It was a Starbucks barista, actually, who asked me to sort of do it. And so didn't even get a free coffee out of it, but that's okay. Can't catch a break. But you do see it once in a while. And it's sad. You see sometimes, and just like it just doesn't work out. Okay, Tyler, give me sometime after.
Sometime after that, when Moses had grown up, he went out to his kinsfolk and witnessed their labors. He saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his kinsmen. He turned this way and that, and seeing no one about, he struck down the Egyptian and hit him in the sand. When he went out the next day, he found two Hebrews fighting. So he said to the offender, "Why do you strike your fellow?" He retorted, "Who made you chief and ruler over us? Do you mean to kill me as you killed the Egyptian?" Moses was frightened and thought, "Then the matter is known." When Pharaoh learned of the matter, he sought to kill Moses, but Moses fled from the Pharaoh. He arrived in the land of Midian, and he sat down beside a well.
There you go. And so this line here, he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his kinsmen. So if we're going to read that as the Egyptian is beating a Hebrew, one of Moses's kinsmen, right?
Mhm.
So then we have at this point an understanding that Moses knows that he's different, that he's a Hebrew. If we read it as he saw an Egyptian who was one of his kinsmen beating a Hebrew, then Moses has no idea what's going on. But I think we can read it the first way. I think that it makes more sense reading it the first way. Beating a Hebrew who was one of his kinsmen. I think that makes sense there. And so again, we don't have a sense of when, By the way, Leah, I'm having a flashback now, and I think it's true. Moses is not circumcised. Moses gets circumcised later. His wife, wife circs him, who's not even Jewish. She's Midianite, but I'm pretty sure that he's not circed yet.
He has to circumcise his son.
But I think the wife does it. I think Zipporah circumcised. "You are a bridegroom of blood to me." I think that comes later. Just popped into my head that I'm not sure if he's still.
Maybe they did that to protect him.
Yeah, I'm saying maybe that was part of it, right? Where to not do that at that point in time.
I bet there were a lot of boys then that weren't circumcised to save their lives.
I wonder if there's a story there somewhere in the interpretation about whether or not the Israelite women, the Hebrew women of that time, circumcised their kids, who they were already hiding to let them live, or whether or not they weren't circumcising them. But according to tradition, now that I'm thinking about it, the Israelite women were supposedly circumcising during the years of slavery, because that was one of the commandments that they could keep, was the commandment of circumcision. But now we're just going down the rabbit hole of Jewish midrash and interpretation. But it is interesting to sort of figure out what rituals they could keep, what couldn't they keep, and how they can keep Moses alive. That's the whole thing, right? In those years in the palace. Him being circumcised would not have been the best play. And again, we don't get who did they in the 10 Commandments? Was it like Nefertiti? I've got, who was the female?
The girlfriend?
Yeah,
Wait, is Zipporah the mother or the wife?
Who now?
Zipporah was the wife.
Zipporah's his wife later. I was thinking about
It's saying in Exodus that she circumcised her son, not her husband.
She circumcised herself? Why?
No,
Her
she circumcised.
son. Her
Oh, her
son.
son. Oh, she did. Okay.
Deborah took a flint and cut off the foreskin of her son.
Keep going though.
And cast it at his feet. And she said, surely a bridegroom of blood art thou to me. So he let him alone. Now he is actually, behold, I will slay thy son, is Pharaoh, I think.
No, we're way out of Pharaoh by the time she.
Okay, I'm in 4:24-23. Thus saith, let's see, and he will not let the people go, and thou shalt say unto thus saith the Lord, Israel is my son, my firstborn, and I have said unto thee, let my son go, that he may serve me, and thou hast refused to let him go. Behold, I will slay thy son, thy firstborn. And it came to pass on the way at the lodging place, I don't know where they are, that the Lord met him and sought to kill him. This is Moses' son, I think.
Look, we're gonna have to figure it out. This is
Okay,
most
so
of
it's coming up soon. And
is circumcision, but it's a good bridegroom of blood. It's a fun phrase too.
yeah,
Okay.
that's it. Yeah.
Okay, my friends, it is 8:00. We have made it to Exodus. We're going to learn more about Moses' life in Midian, including, his marriage and children, and the burning bush as well. Okay. Yeah, that'll be next week. Time for the burning bush. Okay. Catch you all on the flip.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye. Ciao, bambino.
Like dating